सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम श्री गणेशाय नमः। ओम श्री सरस्वत्यै नमः। ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शंकराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पाद शंकरं लोकशंकरं। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं। मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवं परमानन्दमाधवम्। सर्ववेदान्तसिद्धान्त गोचरं तमगोचरं गोविन्दं परमानन्दं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्। So today also we are going to see answers to some of the questions that I have received. In the last session we saw few, now we continue. Next question. Chitta is the memory bank from where intellect retrieves information and takes a decision. So then why is it included in the manomaya kosha? See, chitta is memory bank, you are right. It's a thought in recollection mode. But it is included in manomaya kosha because it is a similar kind of thought like mind. Intellect takes decision. It can take help of mind, it can take help of chitta, memory, it can take help of anything. But by itself, it is not taking decision. Chitta by itself is not taking decision. Right? It is not giving me new knowledge. You see, vijnanamaya kosha, where the intellect is involved, gives me new knowledge. Memory doesn't give me any new knowledge. It's already there, which it comes back to me. Manomaya kosha includes mind also, which doesn't give me new knowledge. It tells me what I already know. Right? And that is why chitta is included along with the mind in the manomaya kosha. That's the logic. I hope this is clear. So chitta, it is recollection, memory only, the thought in recollection mode, but it does job like mind and therefore it is in manomaya kosha. Right. Next question. Please explain the difference between chit in Satchidananda and chit in mana buddhi chitta hankara. It is not chit. It is chitta in mana buddhi chitta hankara. That extra takara is there. Chit means consciousness. Chitta means memory or mind. Very beautifully it is also explained what is chitta. It says chit plus ta, isn't it? Chit, half ta, plus complete ta is chitta. What is that ta? It says tadatmya. Tadatmya, identification. That consciousness, chit, when identified, becomes chitta. Reflected consciousness, identified consciousness. That is what is chitta. As we earlier also we saw, the word chitta, when we speak of mana buddhi chitta hankara, it refers to memory. But in the common parlance, the word chitta can also mean mana. Manas, chitta shuddhi when we say, or chitta ekagrata when we say, it refers to mind. Right? So, chitta is part of antakarana. Chit, consciousness, is my swarupa. Satchidananda is chit, not chitta. There is a difference. Hope that also is clear. Next. Thank you for this opportunity to ask doubts. Recently, my friend died at a young age. She had many things to do, achieve, had many desires, but she died with many tasks and responsibilities left incomplete. Left small children behind, left old parents behind who needed her. We understand that we get this embodiment to exhaust our vasanas. Then why do untimely deaths occur? In my friend's case, she had so much to do in this embodiment, but still her life in this embodiment ended prematurely. On the other hand, I know very old people in 90s struggling to barely live, bedridden, no desires left, but still alive in this embodiment. What is the reason for such extreme examples of duration of life from Vedantic perspective? Question is good, but the answer is very simple. Prarabdha, one word answer. There is no concept of untimely death. See, the death looks untimely to us, but it is not. Death happens at the very moment prarabdha is over for this embodiment. At any age, even an infant child dies, being born on the same day that the child dies also. So there is no early death, there is no prolonged death that I am waiting but death is not coming. It will not come unless your prarabdha is continuing. It is true that we get this embodiment to exhaust vasanas, but we get the embodiment according to prarabdha. And as long as that prarabdha exists, this embodiment will continue to persist. Now, when we say that that person had so many things to do, so many desires, so many responsibilities, it is a very limited vision that we have of our life, and therefore we are saying all these things. Actually, it is not like that. The person, that Jiva, has done whatever was to be done in this embodiment. That is what is called prarabdha is getting over. It may look like there was so much more which could have happened, but that is true for every single person. Why just for other people? Even when we say that there are old people, in their life also so many things can happen, right? So it is not correct to say that the person died prematurely or immature death or untimely death. Such things are not there. Also, because we are on that same topic, let me also explain this. Many times people say that Vedantins are very shrewd. They are very insensitive towards death. It is not true. True Vedantin will not be insensitive towards death of a person. But what we need to understand is, as much as the Jiva, probably more support is required to the family. The Jiva is actually happy who has left the body. Vedantin understands this. For example, you get a new shirt and therefore you give up the old shirt. Do you look back at the old shirt and cry? No, you have got now new shirt. You have got so many new things to look forward to. You don't look back. But the people who are left behind will have sorrow, and it is natural. There is nothing wrong in having sadness in the mind for somebody's departure, somebody's death, etc. There is nothing wrong. Please get this point also straight. Now, you should not say that a person is crying, then he is not a Vedantin. That's not true. See, sorrow and grief are different. Remember, we had seen this earlier. Sorrow is natural because the person was with you for a long time, is connected to you, you have got some kind of attachment to that person. There is a years of memories with that person. You will feel sad. But in your mind, you know that whatever happened is good for that person. It may look like it happened prematurely, but no, it is actually good for that person. And therefore, in your mind, you remember that this is how the life works. And you pray for that Jiva's good gati, sadgati. Okay? It is not being insensitive. You should not be insensitive at all. Okay? But to understand that, yes, Jiva has taken his or her journey forward with the new embodiment, and that Jiva is happy. May that Jiva remain happy wherever that Jiva is. Okay, pray. That is the only thing that you can do. Pray for that person, pray for all the people who are, attached, loving to that person, because they all need prayers, right? That is an extra point, not asked in a question. Okay. Next, the question is in Hindi. जब से कई कोर्स करने के साथ मेरे जानने में आया है कि यदि हमें आत्मा को अनुभव करना है तो हम अपने स्वरूप को अपने ध्यान अवस्था में अपने मन में उठने वाले दो विचारों के बीच में उसका अनुभव कर सकते हैं। किसी विचार के शुरू होने से पहले और विचार समाप्त होने के बाद में भी महसूस कर सकते हैं तथा एक विचार के समाप्त होने के तुरंत बाद में भी महसूस कर सकते हैं। यह भी इंडिकेटर जानने आया है कि अपना आत्मस्वरूप शांति के या फिर कहे तो क्वाइटिट्यूड और पीस के रूप में महसूस होता है। मैं बहुत समय से इसे महसूस करने की कोशिश करता रहा हूँ। कृपया सही दिशा दे, वह ज्ञान दे, जबकि मुझे सदैव ही हर समय अनहत नाद का अनुभव होता रहता है। अतः उस स्थिति में क्वाइटिट्यूड शांति का अनुभव महसूस नहीं होता है। उस समय भी महसूस होता है कि कहीं अनहत जैसा ही चल रहा है, एकदम शांति नहीं होती है। जानकारी दें कि जब उस समय कुछ भी विचार नहीं है, यानी कुछ भी नहीं है, तो अनहत जैसा क्या है? अतः मैं आत्मस्वरूप कैसे अनुभव करूं? सिखाए। जब कुछ नहीं होता है और मैं ही तो हूँ, फिर आपने से अपने को कैसे अनुभव किया जाएगा? कहीं तो कमी रह रही है ऐसा लगता है। Long question. I am not going to translate each and every word. The question is like this. The person is asking that the person has heard that in the seat of meditation, when you focus on the silence between the two thoughts, you can experience the self. So the question is about that. Is it true? How to do that? Because we don't experience that silence, always. That's the question. Okay, now let me explain. It is true that that is one of the methods of experiencing that self, but that experience is possible only when Shravana and Manana is done. See, Nididhyasana, practice of meditation, we will be seeing also in the coming portion, that it is the result of Shravana and Manana. So, Shravana, we listen to the knowledge that I am the self of the nature of Satchidananda, I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am not the intellect. In Manana, we reflect on this and we understand that what does it mean by saying that I am not the body, mind, intellect, what it finally culminates into. After this Shravana Manana is done, then in the practice of meditation, Nididhyasana, we try to maintain our poise, we try to control our mind, take it away from the outside world and focus it on the Supreme Self. Now, how to do this? One of the methods that is given is, you take up certain mantra or certain words and focus on the implied meaning of those words. Or you focus on that mantra and also focus on the silence between the mantras. That silence is like the self. When the thoughts arise, when they exist, when they go, at all times that silence is the substratum of all those thoughts. Isn't it? That is the self. That is one of the methods of practicing meditation. So it is true that you can do that, but please note that the silence is not just between the two thoughts. It is also the substratum of those two thoughts. So even when the thought is there, try to shift your attention from the thought to the substratum of the thought. Or try to shift your attention from the thought to the seer of the thought, witness of that thought. Sometimes when we are practicing meditation, suddenly random thought comes, tea. It's not that you want tea or anything, just a random thought has come, tea. Now, with this thought, you can go and get into a kind of series. Tea. Last time I had tea. It was with a friend. Oh, that friend was so good. Where is he now? What he must be doing? He has 3 children. What is his youngest son doing? See now from T where you have reached? The youngest son of that your friend. Rather than going with this, the moment the thought of T comes, you detach yourself from the thought and say, I am the witness of the thought of T. Then what will happen? That T thought will lose its power. It cannot take you further and take you for a ride of different thoughts. So one of the methods is to focus on the silence, which is not just between the 2 thoughts but also the substratum of the 2 thoughts. Or another method is you focus on the witness. You identify with the witness. The moment you identify with the thought, you will flow with the thought. You say, I am the one looking at the thought, unattached. Now, another question also in the same one is about that anahata nada. Some kind of sound, etc. we hear. Soundless sound also some people they say. All that is fine. All that is fine. But please note that ears are not working in the practice of meditation. So actually you cannot hear anything. All these things are created by mind. So just think about whether it is a true experience or mind is just projecting it. It is highly possible that mind is having another kind of distraction for you as you are trying to practice meditation. Okay, so try to do that. Why it is said that when you focus between the on the silence between the two thoughts, you realize the self? It is because the logic is when the mind stops, realization takes place, and it is believed that between the 2 thoughts the mind is not there. That is the main point. So try to end that mind. Even when you are trying to focus on certain silence between the 2 thoughts, sometimes in Omkara Upasana also they will say you chant Om, and as you complete one Om and before you begin the next Om, you focus on that silence. All these are also correct methods, but catch the essence of all those methods. The essence is we have to reach a state where there is no mind. Manasah amani bhave, one of the texts it is said. When the mind becomes no mind, that is when the self is realized. So that is the point, and that is what one should try. And if it is difficult, do more Shravana Manana, then it will become easier. We are not able to practice meditation successfully because Shravana Manana is not strong enough. That is the reason. Next. Please explain how to put into practice this negation aspect for a grihastha who is so involved with so many duties. Why do you think only grihasthas are involved with so many duties? So are the brahmacharis and vanaprasthis and sannyasis. Okay, it has nothing to do with that. When you say negating aspect, it is what are we negating? Are we negating our duties? No, we are not negating our duties. What are we negating? We are negating our concept of ourselves. We are trying to understand that I am actually the self and not this Jiva which I consider myself to be. But as the Jiva which I have my understanding right now, I have to follow the duties. There is no conflict with that. No doubt I am not this Jiva. But do I have experience of that? No. Then till the time you are in the game, play the game. When you come out of the game, then okay, then you don't have to do anything. So responsibilities, duties and involvement in them will remain till you reach realization, till a person becomes jnani. There is no question of grihastha or vanaprastha or brahmachari or sannyasi. Everybody has got duties. Everybody has to do the duties. In Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan Shri Krishna explains this beautifully. He explains the true nature of the Jiva in the 2nd chapter, then explains the duty aspect, karma yoga as practice in the 3rd chapter, and in the 4th chapter he says, jnane karma sannyasa. Giving up of actions by knowledge, not actual giving up of duties. You are continuing to do your duties, but you understand by knowledge that I am not the doer. For example, in karma yoga attitude, you understand that the Lord is the doer, I am only the instrument. As an instrument, I will do whatever the instrument has to do, but I am not the one who is doing. Then you go one step further and you understand that I am the self which never does anything. Then how are the actions happening? The actions are for the body, mind, intellect to be performed in the world according to prarabdha. Gunaha guneshu vartante. Let them continue to do whatever they have to do. I have nothing to do with it. So the negation is happening on the level of intellect or mind, not on the physical level of action. I'll give you an example and this point will be clear. Physics says that there is no sunrise and there is no sunset. Correct? So you understand this point. Does it mean that you have negated the concept of sunrise and sunset and therefore you cannot see the sunrise and sunset? No. You will still see the sunrise and sunset. You will click pictures also. You will put it on social media also. All that can happen, but in your mind you know that the sun does not rise and the sun does not set. So the vision that eyes are giving is falsified by the vision of knowledge. That's the only difference. The eyes will continue to see. You will continue to enjoy. There is no change happening there. And if somebody says that, at the time of sunset you come and meet me, you will go and meet that person. Why? Because you see sunset happening. All that will happen. But in your mind, you know that the sun does not rise and the sun does not set. In the same way, this Vedantic knowledge happens and works on the level of intellect and mind, which says that I am not the Jiva, I am the self. But all other things will continue as long as I have that even a small trace of thought that I am Jiva. Till that time, all the duties will continue to be there, all the things will continue to be there, all duties you will have to do it, you have to go ahead and do it, but in your mind you will know that I am not the doer. That's the only difference. Hope that is clear. Next, in the three types of intellects, what's the role of pure intellect in case of distinction between Atma and Anatma? I understood that if you keep working on to improve your mind, it is going to be pure, which is essential qualification to understand Vedanta and to reach the goal towards moksha. When you said how sharp intellect is important, not in the transactional level, but once the mind is pure, this sharp intellect is immensely helpful to work towards moksha. I hope I am asking right question. No, just a few corrections here and there. See, pure intellect, when we are talking about, that pure intellect is that which understands dharma and adharma. It is not in Atma and Anatma. That's not the topic of pure intellect. What we need is pure mind. Pure mind is what? Which is devoid of negativities such as anger, jealousy, etc. etc. It is different than pure intellect. Three types of intellect which we saw: Shuddha, Tikshna and Sukshma. Pure, sharp and subtle. What is must for Atma Anatma is the third one, the subtle intellect. The subtle intellect is what is must. Now, if along with being subtle, if the intellect is sharp also, it is additional thing, but that's not the most important thing. Most important thing is it has to be subtle. For worldly things, sharp intellect is very much important. But for the spiritual things, subtle intellect is what is more important. For the moral things, pure intellect is required. Hope that point is clear. Next. After attending many spiritual classes on Vedanta and learning the direction Vivekachoodamani is leading us to, sometimes it comes to mind that is this exercise of moksha or liberation possible for common people like us, or is that too prarabdha related? Do common jivas like us ever become realized jivas? Do they end up, for example, as Pujya Gurudev Swami Chinmayananji and Raman Maharshi or similar type of saints, or are these lesser known or incognito examples around us? Can we also achieve something without becoming saints and Mahatmas? In sadhana chatushtaya, okay, I think this is one question. Of course, there is nothing called as lower jivas or common jivas. Jiva is jiva and any jiva can realize. Okay, you gave example of Gurudev, Swami Chinmayananji, Raman Maharshi, etc. They were also Jivas only. Gurudev, if you see his life, as a small child, he was even atheist. So, if an atheist can realize the Supreme, everybody can. Right? And that's why the path is given. It is not about, see, nobody is declined for this realization. It depends on that Jiva. How strongly the Jiva wants to. How strongly we want to. Why to talk about all other Jivas? The question is about me, whether I will be able to realize or not. It depends on me. But I 100% can. There is nobody who can stop me from doing it other than myself. So, it's up to us whether we are ready to take that plunge into this spiritual life and do it. It is 100% possible. There is absolutely nobody who can deny us the right that we have got of self-realization. So, surely we can do that. Now, can we achieve something without becoming saints or Mahatmas? Of course, we can achieve so many things, but the moment we realize, we automatically become saints or Mahatmas. It is not an option whether to become saints or Mahatmas or not. It is not something that a career option you are choosing. No, you will automatically become that. And we should not even think about all these things. Our job is, there is a path clearly given to us, we keep walking. Whether we will reach or not, that is none of my business. Why? Because worry will only slow down my speed. Why should I worry about that? I keep walking. Whether I will reach or not, that's none of my business. Right? We keep walking. That's what we should do. Next. In Sadhana Chatushtaya, Shama talks about mind and quite often about intellect, but what about the heart? Aren't these three involved in all the confusion of the Jiva and not just the first two? What's the role of what my heart says in this? See, this heart concept, in Vedanta, the concept of heart is not there. Heart is a physical blood pumping heart. If you are referring to, it is part of body. But if you are talking about the spiritual heart, spiritual center of a person, then it is not involved with our emotions. Whenever we say what my heart says, is actually either our mind saying or our intellect saying. Other than mind and intellect, there is no heart. In this relation, okay, when it comes to emotions, I am talking about, right? So, what my heart says is what actually my mind, deep-rooted vasanas are telling, or what my inclinations, generally we say, bend of heart is towards this, that is inclination. But spiritual heart, hridaya guhara madhye, etc., when they speak that the self is within the spiritual heart, again, we are neither referring to the physical blood pumping heart, nor are we talking about heart which is involved with certain emotions. No, we are talking about the core of our personality. In the language, in English language also we say, go to the heart of the problem. Go to the heart of the problem means core of the problem. That's what it means even in Vedanta. Okay. Other than that, the heart doesn't play a role in Vedanta. So, what we call as heart in the common parlance is either mind or intellect. We don't generally use these terms in common parlance. We don't say my intellect is thinking. We don't say that. We say I think, I feel. And whenever we use the word feel, we think that the heart is feeling. And when we say I think, we think that the brain is thinking. So, heart and brain are generally used in the common parlance, the equivalent of which are mind and intellect respectively. So, when we say my heart says, it is the mind or the intellect which is saying so. Okay. Hope that is clear. Next. Being a serious sadhaka, I would like to have your suggestion on the specific steps one should adopt in order to develop subtle intellect, even though all efforts are on purifying one's thoughts are on continuously. How to develop subtle intellect? In the last session also I had given some pointers. Okay, this question must have come before that. The question was asked before it, but I have answered some of the things in the last session. But let me add a few more points. How to develop subtle intellect? continuous reflection on the unreality of the world will develop subtle intellect. For example, through every single experience that we go, in our waking state, in our life, we have to remind ourselves that it is only temporary. It is not real. Even the joy that I am getting out of it is not real. It's a temporary joy coming because of likes being fulfilled. This kind of continuous thinking will help us make our intellect subtle. That is another method. Okay, few more things I had mentioned in the last session also, you can refer to that. Next, a jiva has studied and has gathered intellectual knowledge about the self but has not been able to realize it. Will this information be available to the jiva in subsequent births, or whether jiva has to start from scratch again? Neither. The question is very specific. Will this information be available for the jiva? The information will not be available. Or whether the jiva has to start from scratch again? No, the jiva doesn't have to start from scratch again also. The sadhana is never lost. The subtlety that the mind has reached, the purity and the focus that the mind and intellect have reached is not lost. The information may not be there, that I am Satchidananda. That information may come from anywhere. Right? And the moment it comes, you remember all those things which you have done. Not that how you did and all that. See, memory is not there. Memory is not there, but understanding is there. Let me give you an example. Suppose you are in a business or you are doing whatever work in your field. Now, in your career, throughout, you have learnt so many things. Yeah? All those incidences which taught you that thing, you will not remember. But the understanding is still there. Example. Suppose you are into, what example should we do? Suppose you are an engineer and you have lived your life, career into building something, boilers, suppose, let us say, example I am just taking. Now you have learned so many things because of so many experiences of yours. So when somebody, now you have retired and somebody as a consultant asks you to visit their company and you go there, the moment you see, you say that there is some fault. Now you will not remember how did you know that there is some fault, at what day, on what place did you learn about this, that all you will not remember, but you know your understanding, you trust your understanding and you say there is something wrong. Memory is not there. Incidents you might have forgotten, but the understanding is still there. In the same way, information may not be there. Memory of who gave me that knowledge in the last birth and how I studied and when did I study, all that may not be there, but the understanding will remain. And therefore, the moment I come to face this knowledge, I get my understanding back. So, Jiva neither has the memory of the past, nor is he starting from the scratch. He starts from where he left, in sadhana. Memory may not be there, but understanding will remain. Clarity will remain. Purity will remain. All that will remain. See, as we live also our life, we know what we should do and what we should not do. That kind of clarity has come to us. Even in worldly life I am talking, I am not talking strictly in spiritual life. Even in worldly life, we know that this I should not do. Now, how this clarity has come? Because of all the experiences of the past. That clarity will remain. Memory is not there. You don't know how that clarity came, because of which incidents. You may not even remember the people, but you remember the clarity. That's what happens to the Jiva. Sadhana remains. Sadhana is never lost. Clarity, purity is never lost. It will be there. As soon as you take the next birth, you start from there. That is what happens. Next. If Brahman has intrinsic nature, how can it be called as Nirguna? It cannot be called as Nirguna also. It is beyond Saguna and Nirguna, actually speaking. Also, when it is said, when we are calling it as Nirguna, it is to say that it doesn't have qualities. We are not talking about intrinsic nature. Intrinsic nature is Swarupa, not Guna. We have discussed this point earlier. Gunas belong to Prakriti, not to Brahman. Brahman has Swarupa. So, intrinsic nature of Brahman is Swarupa, not Gunas, and therefore it can be called as Nirguna. But as you said, it is actually beyond the word Saguna and Nirguna also. Nirguna is another pointer to Brahman to make us understand that anything with quality is not Brahman. It helps us in negating what it is not, and that is why it is given. Next. If there are non-intrinsic nature of objects, how they came about from Nirguna Brahman, as Brahman alone is? They have not come from Brahman. They are only appearing to be there. You see, the snake that you experience on the rope is not actually there, but that snake which you are experiencing will still have qualities. It is a poisonous snake. You may give it name also. It is a black mamba. And what? It is having yellow dots. Now you tell me, are these qualities of the snake real? No. Why? Because the snake itself is not real. So how the non-intrinsic values have come to the objects if they have come from Brahman? Because actually they have not come from Brahman. They have not come at all. They are only imagined to be there. And imagined thing can have imaginary values. Why not? Imaginary qualities. Why not? They can have. Okay. Now, how Maya manifesting attributes as Maya's Adhisthana is Brahman. See, again I am telling the same point is repeated here. Maya is manifesting means what? Maya is only projecting, creating an illusion. It is not actually there. And an illusion must have a substratum, which is Brahman. So, when it is said Adhisthana of Maya is Brahman, it has to have Brahman as Adhisthana. But that illusory power will create illusory world on the same Adhisthana, same substratum Brahma. So, Maya is not actually creating anything. Maya is only showing us that it has created everything. Okay? Hope that clarifies. Next. Please explain Vastu Parichheda again with example. So, we saw three kinds of limitations. Limitations by space, limitation by time and limitation by object. Remember Desha Parichheda, Kala Parichheda, Vastu Parichheda. And Atma is not limited by any of these. That's what was explained. Now, Vastu Parichheda means what? Vastu Parichheda means limitation by object. Means what? An object is finite and therefore it has got its finite space and finite time, right? But in that space, at that time, that object exists. Correct? For example, this watch. This watch is finite and therefore it is Desha Parichheda. Correct. Desha Parichheda. It is limited in space. Correct. It is limited by time also because there was a time when this watch was not there. So, it is limited by time also. But that is not what is Vastu Parichheda. So, please remove this concept of Vastu from Vastu Parichheda. An object has Desha Parichheda and Kala Parichheda. Now, what is Vastu Parichheda? This object, carefully, this object limits the other object from existing at this place, at this time. Or, in other words, this object being different from other object limits the other object. Why? Because there exists something other than it. That limitation is called as Vastu Paricheda. Vastu Paricheda, limitation by object, means what? Limitation that comes because of the presence of another object. Desha Paricheda is limitation by space. Kala Paricheda is limitation by time. Vastu Paricheda means what? This object is here means the another object is not here, or another object is there means this object is limited, or the other object is limited. So, the presence of two objects limits both the objects. In other words, watch is means that the pot is not there. Pot is means the watch is not there. So, watch is limited by pot and pot is limited by watch. Both are limited in space and time. We are not talking about that. Understand this point. Both are limited by space and time, of course, because they are objects. But each object limits other objects. Now, when we say there is no Vastu Paricheda for the self, Vastu Aparichinna, when we call the self to be, what it means? There is no other object other than the self which can limit the self. Are you getting? The very moment we say that there are two objects, both objects become limited. They are limited by each other. Of course, they are limited in space and time, but they are also limited by each other. The moment we say self alone is, there is nothing other than the self, it becomes unlimited. The presence of any object at the same level of reality as the self will limit the self, which is not possible. Hope it clarifies. Next. When the body perishes, then how will that self remain? Example, when the pot is broken, there will be no water and reflection will not be there. Hence, I have this doubt. Good question, because you are taking the example of pot, water and reflection into this. But you see, each example has got a limitation. Okay, it should not be taken to extend and explain all the concepts. The concept of Pratibimba-vada, which is explained through pot, water and reflection of sun, is to explain how the same sun appears in different pots of water as many reflections. That's the point that is to be taken through that example. Now, the question is how the body, when the body perishes, how will the self remain? The self, of course, remain because the self is always there. But here the self you are mentioning about is Jiva, as I understand, small s. How will that Jiva remain? Because Jiva is much subtler than the body. Body may die, it will take, the Jiva is actually subtle body which is always with the reflection of consciousness, that will take another body and continue to be. See, body is like an outer thing that I have taken on myself. I may take it up, I may give it up. It is exactly like how shirt is there. Suppose one person is wearing the same dress for 20 years, suppose, then gets so much attached to that. 20 years without washing, without anything, continuously wearing the same dress. Okay. Now you ask me the question, if the person removes the dress and takes another dress, how is it possible? Why is it not possible? Just because I have lived with that shirt for 20 years doesn't make it intrinsic to me. It was still a outer garb which I had worn. How? For a long time, therefore, I had some attachment, therefore, I will not give it up so easily. Fine, agreed, accepted. But my existence is not dependent on that shirt. So too, the existence of Jiva is not dependent on the gross body. It exists with the gross body or without the gross body. With this gross body or with another gross body, it exists. If you try to understand this through the example of pot and water, it may not work. It may not work, okay? But for the sake of understanding, let me explain. There is a pot on the table and there is water and the sun is getting reflected. You break the pot, the water spills on the table, still the sun gets reflected. Now you turn the table and collect that water in another pot and keep it on the table, it will still have reflection. Wherever the water goes, it will reflect the sun. Wherever the water goes, it will reflect the sun. And if not with this pot, it will take another pot. That is the job of prarabdha, which will make the subtle body take up next gross body, and that's how the jiva will continue its journey further. Hope that is clear. Are Atma and Jiva same entities? Do I have two of them in my body? No, Atma and Jiva are not two entities. Jiva is Atma, not understood as Atma, but understood as something else. Let us take the same example again. Are the rope and snake different entities? No. Snake is rope, not understood as rope, but understood as snake. So, are there two entities in my body? No, there is only one entity. Okay. What is Mahat? What is Mahat? Mahat has got different meanings. Here, especially when we are talking about Sankhya and the counting, etc., Mahat refers to that. How do I explain in simple terms? It is total ego. Let me put it like that. Total ego. See, individual ego is there, no? Ahankara we all have. Mahat Tattva is the total ego. You can understand it like that at this point. That is Mahat. Total ego, which is also result of Maya. Prakriti, what Sankhya's call. Okay. Brahman in totality and Atman individuality are same. Then who is Purushottama? Ishvara or Brahman or just another name, as all are same technically? Please explain. Purushottama in Bhagavad Gita chapter 15 is that Brahman. That's why Bhagavan says also, Dva vimau purusho loke, ksharascha akshara evacha, ksharas sarvani bhutani, kutastho kshara uchyate, uttamah purushastu anyaha. Uttama purusha, Purushottama is anya. So, what is he referring to there? Because the question has been asked, I will answer. Kshara Purusha is entire gross and subtle world. Akshara Purusha is entire causal world, Maya. Purushottama, Uttama Purusha or Paramatma is different from this gross, subtle and causal world. You call it Brahman, you call it Atman, you call it Paramatman, it doesn't matter, it is one and the same. That is what Purushottama refers to. Purushottama refers to that Satchidananda. You call it Brahma, Atma, Paramatma, it doesn't matter. Okay, that is what it refers to. Now, specific question. How will verses 218 and 219 help us in our sadhana? So, let me open verses 218 and 19. घटोदके बिंबितमर्कबिंबम आलोक्य मूढ़ो रविमेव मन्यते तथा चिदाभासमुपाधि संस्थम भ्रांत्याहमित्येव जडोभिमन्यते घटम जलम तद्गतम् अर्कबिंबम विहाय सर्वं विनिरीक्ष्यते अर्कः. Okay. So these two verses are talking about pratibimba vada. In our sadhana, how will they help? To remind ourselves that I am the self and not the jiva. I am the sun and not the reflection of sun, nor the water, nor the pot. That is how it will help us in sadhana. See, at the moment we feel that we all are different, isn't it? We don't see we don't see everybody to be one. Why? Because we are focusing on the reflections of the self in all the pots, in all the bodies. Okay, these two verses will help us to understand there may be different reflections, but the self is one, and I am that self. And who are all other people? They are also the self only. There is only one self. There is no question of many selves. That one self reflected in different bodies, subtle and gross, expressed in different ways, but I am that pure self. So this is how these two verses will help us in sadhana. We have to bring to our mind again and again this point that I am, I am this self and not the jiva which I consider myself to be. Hope it clarifies. Next. Kindly explain Karana Sharira once again with emphasis on why it is termed Karana Sharira. It is termed Karana Sharira because it causes gross and subtle. It causes the Sthula and Sukshma Sharira, therefore it is Karana Sharira. Karana Sharira has vasanas, Karana Sharira has prarabdha. Prarabdha gives birth to what kind of mind, intellect will be there, and also what kind of embodiment we will get. We saw when we were seeing Sthula Sharira and Sukshma Sharira that both are karmajanya. Isn't it? They are made up of the material cause is the 5 elements, the gross 5 elements and the subtle 5 elements, but the efficient cause is prarabdha karma for both of them. Now, where is this prarabdha karma? The prarabdha karma is in Karana Sharira, and therefore, since it causes the other two bodies, it is called causal body, Karana Sharira. Simple. Karana Sharira. Why Karana Sharira? Because it is Karana for Sthula and Sukshma. That's the answer. Next. My question is not exactly related to Vivekachoodamani, but hope it will be clarified. I was under the impression that Bhagavan is purely sattva only, but was confused going through the Bhagavad Gita chapter 7 verse 12, where Bhagavan says he is the source of all gunas. He is not in them, but they are superimposed on him. So where is the confusion? I don't see the confusion here. Bhagavan is pure sattva only, Vishuddha sattva. Actually, he is beyond sattva, rajas, tamas. He is talking himself as Paramatman there, as the supreme Brahman, where he says that he is the source of all gunas means what? He is the substratum of all gunas. The source doesn't mean that he has to produce gunas. And if he says that he is source of gunas as Ishvara, Ishvara has Maya in it. So you can say source of all gunas is Bhagavan. There is no problem. He is not in them, but they are superimposed on him. That also doesn't make it Rajasic or Tamasic. It only means that it is the pure substratum and all the gunas are superimposed on him. Right? So there is no, I don't see any confusion here. Next. We have learned that our nature is bliss, and what we experience through Priya Moda Pramoda is not actually bliss. Have we even experienced glimpses of bliss? How do I know I am on the right track? Because despite understanding I am happiness intellectually, I still get caught up in worldly pleasures many times. When you get caught up in worldly pleasures, understand that you are still long way to go. When you start to understand that worldly pleasures, they may be there, they may not be there, it doesn't matter. When that kind of, uninterest comes to our mind. If they are there, okay. If they are not there, okay. Very delicious food, okay. Not very delicious food, okay. When we get this kind of freedom from the worldly pleasures, we should understand that we are reaching closer to the bliss. Have we experienced glimpses of bliss? Yes, we must have. But ignorance is covering, and therefore we don't know. That is why what we have to do, we have to just walk the path which is given. Okay, all other things will be taken care. Next, I understand that Paramatma pervades everything in the universe, all living and non-living things, but does not make non-living things sentient. Does it mean it is the reflection of Paramatma which takes place in the Sukshma Sharira that makes one alive, one sentient? Yes. Yes, that is correct understanding. Self is there in and through everything. Sentient beings, insentient objects. Why are sentient beings called as sentient beings? Because they have reflection of consciousness happening. The life principle is there. And reflection happens in Sukshma Sharira, you are right. And in stone, etc., in inert objects, so-called insentient things, that subtle body is not present and therefore reflection of consciousness is not happening, but consciousness is there. You are absolutely right. Consciousness is there in and through everything. It alone is there actually. Right? But sentiency, insentiency is because of the expression of that consciousness as a reflection of consciousness. Next. Please explain reflection of consciousness, Chidabhasa. Is it ego? When it is said that Annamaya kosha and Pranamaya kosha cannot function without consciousness or reflection of consciousness, what should I understand by this? Kindly also explain Chidakasha and Chidghana. Chidakasha, Chidghana, Chidabhasa, these are different terms for the same concept, reflection of consciousness. Is reflection of consciousness ego? No. Ego and reflection of consciousness are always together. We saw earlier that in the subtle instrument, consciousness gets reflected. The portion where it gets reflected, which it is always associated with, that portion of subtle body is called as ego. And that ego and Chidabhasa are always together. Okay. Now, Annamaya and Pranamaya kosha cannot function without it. Yes, because the sentiency is brought in by this reflection of consciousness. Simple thing, if this subtle body, if this subtle instrument leaves this gross body and goes somewhere else, this Annamaya kosha will not be able to function, the Pranamaya kosha will not be able to function. So, the life principle is brought in by Chidabhasa, reflection of consciousness, and therefore it is said that both Annamaya and Pranamaya cannot function without this Chidabhasa. For that matter, Manomaya and Vijnanamaya also cannot function without Chidabhasa. Anandamaya also cannot function without Chidabhasa. There also we had seen Anandamaya kosha also has got reflection of consciousness in Ananda Vritti. So, nothing can function without it. Very good, all Chidabhasa questions coming one after another. Chidabhasa term is often used in this text and in Vedanta. I know it is reflected consciousness, but it is not clear in my mind what exactly it means and how to understand its real meaning. Kindly make me understand. I think I have just now explained. Chidabhasa is appearance of Chit, consciousness, reflection of consciousness. It is that by which the inert mind gets the sentiency from the actual consciousness. You can imagine it like the Pratibhimbavada example we saw. The sun is there and there is a reflection of sun in the water. Remember, this reflection also has power to light, power to illumine. Often they give one example, outside one dark room, there is a pot of water in which the sun is getting reflected. Right? Now, this reflection of sun which is happening in the water is further going in the room and illumining the room. Isn't it? We used to do that, no? We used to take a mirror, small mirror, and that sun's rays, we used to focus on the opposite wall. Remember? Now, why are you able to see this reflection of sun from the mirror on that wall? Because the sun is not directly falling on the wall. If the wall is directly illumined by the sun, you won't see this, this reflection. So, the reflection is what? Reflection is that which takes the light from the sun and can illumine other. In the same way, Chidabhasa is reflection of consciousness which takes the sentiency from the consciousness and makes the body sentient. That is what is Chidabhasa. One question of Pitru I have answered. Next. Is Jiva same as ego? Then please explain Jiva is equal to ego plus reflection of consciousness. See, just now I explained, ego and reflection of consciousness are always together. You cannot separate them. And therefore, when you say ego, reflection of consciousness is always with it. And therefore, to say that Jiva is ego or to say that Jiva is ego plus reflection of consciousness is one and the same. When you say Jiva is ego, reflection of consciousness is understood. Why? Because it is always together. They are sahaja. They are always in unison. They are always together. Right? So, Jiva can be called as ego. Jiva can be called as ego plus reflection of consciousness. But that plus reflection of consciousness is to be understood. Anyways, when you say Ahankara, a reflection of consciousness is always with it. Okay? So, that also point we have to understand. Next. Can you please explain the difference between Saguna Sakara, Saguna Nirakara and Nirguna Nirakara? See, Guna means attributes. Akara means form. Saguna means with attributes. Nirguna means without attributes. Sakara means with form. Nirakara means without form. So, we generally explain Parabrahma Paramatma, that supreme reality, that supreme Brahman, Atman, consciousness, Satchidananda Swarupa as Nirguna Nirakara, without any attributes, without any form. Now, for the sake of explanation of Srishti, we say that same Nirguna Nirakara Parabrahma Paramatma gets associated with Maya and therefore becomes Saguna Nirakara Ishvara. Gunas are there now. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, gunas are there. Srishti, Sthiti, Laya, guna is there. Prema, etc. Adi gunas are there. So, it is Saguna Nirakara. It still has no form. Physical form is not there, but it is associated with Maya. Therefore, it has got guna and therefore Saguna Nirakara, which is termed as Ishvara. Then we come one step further and we say, now this Saguna Nirakara Ishvara takes different forms, and that is called as Saguna Sakara Bhagavan. With attributes, now with form also. So, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Devi, Ganesha, all these are different forms of the same Ishvara. So, Nirguna Nirakara, Parabrahma. Saguna Nirakara, Ishvara. Saguna Sakara, Bhagavan. But please remember, all these distinctions are made by us. Bhagavan doesn't consider himself to be Bhagavan. Bhagavan considers himself to be Brahman alone. Ishvara doesn't consider himself to be Ishvara. Ishvara considers himself to be Brahman alone. They are Nitya Jnani, and therefore this distinction is only made by us for the explanation of Srishti. Nirguna Nirakara, Saguna Nirakara, Saguna Sakara. Hope it is clear. Next, in continuation to earlier doubts, okay, am I correct in identifying the soul as individual consciousness which for getting moksha has to merge with the Atman or the universal consciousness? This has to take place in a world which is not real, but then is there such a thing as individual consciousness which is only a reflection? Then there is no question of moksha because we are already one. Then what is the need of for jnana, subtle intellect, etc.? Or is there actually a temporary world, although unreal from an Atman point of view, where we are made of experience, pain, pleasure based on activities? Continuing, this world is unreal and hence only consciousness, not even witness consciousness exists. Now my question is different question. Okay, let me explain the first question first. Is Jiva merging into the consciousness? No, Jiva is not merging into consciousness. Jiva is only realizing that it is consciousness. It was consciousness, it is consciousness, it will only be consciousness because there is nothing other than consciousness. But then what is the role of the world? Why are the sadhanas? Why is jnana, etc.? Because we don't know, because we are seeing something wrong. Jnana is to remove wrong understanding, not to give us or unite us with something new. No, it is already us. Let us take the same example, rope and snake. Are we merging the snake back in the rope? No. We are understanding that there is no snake. Even the snake which I was seeing was rope alone. Even when I was seeing it as snake, it was rope alone. And now that I have understood, that it was always a rope. So it is not that the Jiva is merging into consciousness or there is a requirement of the world in which this merging has to take place. Nothing like that. Sadhana is required. Why? Because we have misunderstood. To remove misunderstanding, sadhana is required. To remove that concept that snake exists different from the rope, sadhana is required to understand that the snake is rope alone. We are not merging. See, for the sake of saying, we may say, merge the snake in the rope. What it means, merging is not actually mixing water or sugar into that water. Not like that. Merging means what? Let the former not remain, let the latter alone remain. That's what it means. Merge the snake into rope means understand that the rope alone is. There is no snake. So, merging the Jiva into Paramatma means understand that the Paramatma alone is. There is no Jiva. And there is no world required for this merging. Next, the world is unreal and hence only consciousness, not even witness consciousness exists. Now my question is, after death from an unreal world or temporary real world, where does the Jiva, supposedly consciousness itself, travel to? And scriptures say that depending on our desires, samsaras are created and we come back. Hence, are we to presume that there is no hell or heaven as such outside this world? There are mentions of hell and heaven in the Bhagavad Purana. I presume the fact is whether the world is real or unreal. We are experiencing pain and pleasure based on our past action. It appears real for us. Is there hell in afterlife, as may say, or whether both hell or heaven are on this earth only? Any reference from the scriptures? I think by now this concept must have got clarified. In the last session also I have explained. The world is not real. So are the hell and heaven. So are the scriptures. But only when we realize that the world is not real, we can dismiss the scriptures and hell and heaven. As long as we are giving reality to the world, hell and heaven exist, so are the scriptures which tell that we go to hell and heaven. All these are on same level of reality, that is Vyavaharika Satta. Don't put one foot in the Paramarthika Satta and one on Vyavaharika Satta. As long as we are part of the dream, we must act as per the dream. As long as we are part of the drama, we are playing a character, we must continue to act like one. We don't have option. So we cannot say that the world is not there, therefore hell and heaven doesn't exist. Wrong. If you think you are this body, hell and heaven are very much real. Whether they are in this world or in other worlds, they are in both. In this world itself, we are in hell or heaven depending on the state of our mind. And afterlife also we will go to hell and heaven depending on our actions and our prarabdha. All exist. You yourself have given example of Bhagavad Purana. Yes, it is there and it is absolutely true. In the Vyavaharika Satta, it is truth. Hope it is clear. If we keep one leg on the Paramarthika Satta, then the whole confusion will start. Okay, as long as I don't realize that the world is unreal, I have to accept the scriptures and I have to understand this concept of heaven and hell to be true. Can we get a written record of these questions and answers if possible? Same would be more clarifying in nature. Written record, I don't know what do you mean by written record, but as I told you, in the Purana itself, you yourself have given that it is there. And if you want to, in Bhagavad Purana, 28 types of hell are also enumerated. What are the 28 types of hells? Naraka, Kumbhipaka and different kinds are there, right? You can go there and find out. Hope that also clarifies. Next. In terms of Anandamaya kosha questions, it was mentioned that in our waking hours we have to put in a lot of more efforts to experience joy or happiness. Is it because it is only partially manifest in those states, or also due to the various levels of agitation stress that the mind and body are going through? Please clarify. It is because of both. You are right. It's because of presence of so many agitations and so many outside objects that we are not happy. How much we are happy in our deep sleep. You are right. Both. In terms of deep sleep state, is the amount and depth of deep sleep which can provide complete physical and mental relaxation dependent upon the result of our past meritorious actions only, or are there any other factors that may contribute to this? No other factors, only based on our prarabdha. As we understand, there could be various physical or mental conditions that could influence an individual's sleep quality and amount of time spent in deep sleep. And these could be either temporary in most cases, but may be also long lasting again due to various factors. How can these two, that is punya and the influence of external factor, be tied together? Please help me in this understanding. It is not two things tied together, it is only punya. We may say that my mind is agitated, therefore I am not getting deep sleep. but your mind is agitated is effect of punya, effect of past actions alone. Also, actually speaking, when that punya fructifies, even if your mind is agitated, you will fall asleep. You will go in deep sleep, no matter what happens. See, we fall asleep in any situation. We may say that no, right now there are too many things in my mind, somebody dear has passed away and therefore there are too many thoughts in my mind. If the sleep comes, all the thoughts will go, and that sleep is the result of punya. So there is only one factor which is causing the deep sleep, and that is the result of past actions. When the results of the past meritorious actions punya are mentioned, can you please explain how in general are these efforts distributed over the lifetime of an individual and at different levels, with the understanding that there is not a set pattern for this? Are the effects like in terms of our gross body, it affects the type of our chosen actions, that is noble or good actions, at the subtle body level in terms of quality and type of thoughts or emotions, causal body level in terms of decreasing the vasana load? Please clarify. No. See, let me answer this in different levels. First, when you said that the punya does not have a specific set pattern, it has a specific pattern which we don't understand. Okay, just because we don't understand doesn't mean there is not a pattern. There is a pattern, and the scriptures say also gahana karmano gatihi, that these karmas are very difficult to understand. That doesn't mean they don't have set pattern. There are set patterns, they follow a proper way, and very simple way is every single action, the moment it creates punya or papa, it also creates the time when the punya and papa is going to fructify. The maturity period is along with that punya and papa. So it does come at exactly that time and gives us sukha and dukkha. That is how it fructifies. What you said that, whether as action on the body level, thoughts on mind level, and vasana on the causal level, no, they don't create all these things. These are the things created by our choice purushartha. What do punya and papa create? Punya and papa create sukha and dukkha. That is it. They don't create anything else. Punya and papa create situations which will give me sukha or dukkha. Again, my reaction to that is completely in my hand. Noble actions or ignoble actions are in my hand. What kind of emotions to continue are in my hand. What kind of vasanas to strengthen and what kind of vasanas to negate is in my hand. This is not the result of punya papa. Punya papa comes at exact correct time because that maturity time is already with it, and it gives us sukha or dukkha respectively. Okay. Right. Few more questions are there. We are going to finish this today. In spite of having listened and having the knowledge that we are Brahman, why we cannot experience that state and be constantly in that state of realization? It is because of our deep-rooted vasanas. I am giving you short answer because the topic will follow soon in Vivekachoodamani itself. Okay. Very soon it will be taken. The topic will be taken. How can we reason and convince ourselves about that Brahman? What is contemplation and how to do it? Actually, all your questions are going to be answered just in few verses. Okay, the process of meditation will be taken up, around 255 verses, around that 251, 252, around that this process also will be taken, and how to convince that also will be taken. So adhyasa apanayam kuru, there will come a section. So all your questions will be soon answered. Next, in Shloka 124, you have mentioned that thought is the window to the self, but later you mentioned that the self cannot be realized by the thoughts or intellect. Kindly help to understand it properly. When it is said thought is the window to the self, it means it is a window. See, from the window you see the moon. The moon has nothing to do with window, but you can see the moon through the window. In the same way, the moment we see the thought, we can go to the substratum of the thought, which is the self. I am not saying that the self will be understood by that thought. No, but it becomes a window. Through that window, we can go to the next level. So the moment we have a thought, we focus on the thought, we say go to the substratum of the thought, and that is how we go to the self. The self is not understood by the thought, but thought becomes window to reach the self. Another query. When the mind has fewer worldly thoughts, then you can see everything as a happening and many miracles seem to be happening. Is this any indication to the progress on the path of self-realization? What are the ways to know that you are slowly inching forward? When you understand that there are no miracles, everything is happening according to the prarabdha. And if at all there is a miracle, that miracle is that I am in bondage and later on I am going to be liberated. These are the only two miracles. That even being Satchidananda Swarupa, I think I am Jiva. Greatest miracle. And another miracle, after having fallen into this samsara, I go back and realize my true nature. Another miracle. Other than that, there are no miracles. Actually, as you start progressing on the spiritual paths, surprise element goes from your life. You are not surprised anymore of the things happening around you, of the people behaving around you. You become insulated for all those experiences. Okay. So the best way to judge whether we are progressing or not is this: whether we are getting less and less affected by the world or not. If we are getting less and less affected, we are progressing. If we are happy for no reason, we are progressing. Interesting question. Your discourse is so lovely and captivating. Please tell us if you are already realized. I am not realized. I am also still on the path, walking, trying to realize. But as the self, I am already realized. Now the only obstacle that remains is to understand that I am already realized. If you get it, you get it. Next question. I recently got caught up with this question for you. Okay. As I have been listening to the lectures, I realized that I need to increase my adhikaritva by sadhana chatushtaya and spend more time in shravana and manana. I have some family and health issues due to which, as I increase time in my study, I have to do less other obligations. Sometimes it is in sattvic areas, like when they ask to make garlands, I do not raise my hand as it takes away from my study, meditation attempts, etc. Am I being selfish? Shouldn't moksha be my only goal? May I feel guilty because right now mostly it is efforts to sit and focus and attempts to learn verses. But in that time I could have done the task they wanted to assign to me well. So for in between sadhakas, it is still not selfish to focus on spiritual development alone. Okay. Now you are thinking that doing shravana manana is sadhana, but making mala is not sadhana. Please get this thought out of your mind. Every single work that comes our way is a sadhana. Taking bath is a sadhana. Eating food is a sadhana. Cooking food is sadhana. Walking is sadhana. Talking is sadhana. Not talking is sadhana. Please don't separate sadhana from your life. Don't think that if I do shravana manana, then only I am doing sadhana. All other times I am not doing sadhana. It's not like that. You can bring the element of sadhana in each and everything. So don't worry about what kind of sadhana. See, if you start to choose the type of sadhana, yes, you are being selfish. Rather than selfish, you are not understanding the concept itself. According to the stage of life and according to our prarabdha, we will have responsibilities. To do those responsibilities, to fulfill them, that itself is greatest sadhana. Remember Arjuna wanted to go out and meditate. What did Sri Krishna say? Did Sri Krishna say, yes Arjuna, you are right, reaching the realization is the greatest goal, therefore go away from here and go into the forest? No, Sri Krishna did not say like that. No doubt reaching realization is the goal of life, but that is achieved through duty alone. Please get this point straight. Doing your duty is the greatest sadhana. Throughout Bhagavad Gita, again and again, Bhagavan Shri Krishna has emphasized on this point. Even when he is explaining the meditation, he says, therefore Arjuna, get up and fight. He is explaining meditation, the state of meditation, but he says, Arjuna, get up and fight. Why? That is the step for you right now. So never have this thought that there is Shravana Manana is the sadhana and other things are not sadhana. Everything is sadhana. Everything that comes my way is sadhana. When I have free time, what to do? I can choose. But when I have duties, doing those duties is my sadhana. Please don't be choosy towards your duties, because the moment you bring choice in the duty, it doesn't remain duty, it becomes a selfish action, kamya karma. Okay? Now the question is about mapping koshas and shariras. Okay, I have explained this, but let me explain it again. Sthula sharira is annamaya kosha. Sukshma sharira is pranamaya kosha, manomaya kosha, vijnanamaya kosha together, where pranamaya kosha already includes prana and karmendriya. Manomaya kosha includes mana, chitta and karmendriya, jnanendriya. And vijnanamaya kosha includes buddhi and ahankara and jnanendriyas. Okay, so you don't have to specially add the jnanendriyas into koshas. The koshas includes karmendriya and jnanendriyas. Please see the explanation again. Pranamaya kosha is pranas plus karmendriya. Manomaya kosha is manas plus jnanendriya. Vijnanamaya kosha is buddhi plus jnanendriya. So pranamaya, manomaya, vijnanamaya together is sukshma sharira. And karana sharira is anandamaya kosha. You are right. Last question. Means last person. Again in Hindi. प्रभु हम सभी लोग जानते हैं कि मन विचारों का समूह है और हम इन्हीं विचारों के कारण संसार को महसूस करते हैं, अन्यथा यह है ही नहीं, मात्र स्वप्न है। जब हम जानते हैं कि संसार तो मात्र स्वप्न ही है जो जागते में भी भासता है और स्वप्न में मन ही संसार बन जाता है, सब भ्रम है। मन में यह विचार कहाँ से आते हैं, उनकी उत्पत्ति, उसका स्रोत क्या है, कैसे संतुलित होंगे वह, हम विचारों को कैसे शांत करें, विशेष रूप से ध्यान अवस्था में। संसार तो जागते का स्वप्न है और हम सबके स्वप्न अलग अलग होते हैं, फिर भी जब दो लोग या ज़्यादा लोग एक ही असद वस्तु को उसी संसार में या उसी एक स्थान पर देखते हैं तो वह सभी लोगों को वह एक जैसी दिखती है, अलग अलग तरह की नहीं। ऐसा क्यों, कारण क्या है? Two questions, different questions. First, let me answer the first question. The question is, from where are the thoughts arising? Because the thoughts of the mind are cause for samsara. So, where are the thoughts arising? The thoughts are arising from vasanas. Where are the vasanas arising? Vasanas are arising from our ignorance of the self. So, everything finally is arising from that ignorance of the self. अज्ञान की वजह से वासना उत्पन्न होती है, वासनाओं की वजह से विचार होते हैं जो कि हमें संसार में रखते हैं। तो सबका मूल कारण अज्ञान है। नाउ द सेकेंड क्वेश्चन, इन माई ड्रीम माई एक्सपीरियंसेस आर डिफरेंट देन यूर ड्रीम एक्सपीरियंस ऑफ यूर ड्रीम, बट इन बोथ ऑफ आवर वेकिंग वी हैव अ कॉमन एक्सपीरियंस. हाउ कैन वी अंडरस्टैंड दैट दिस इज ऑल्सो फॉल्स? दैट्स द क्वेश्चन एक्चुअली. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, you are listening to me, there is next person also sitting to you who is also listening to me. Now both of you are listening to me. How can you understand that this is in your dream? Why? Because two different people are having the same experience. So how can we understand this waking is like a dream? That's the question. Now let me answer. Suppose this session is happening in the dream. Suppose this session is happening in the dream. In your dream, you are seeing yourself, you are seeing the other person, you are seeing me talking, and you are seeing both of you experiencing same me talking. Will that dream become real just because two people have same experience? It will not. Only in the dream we feel that, see now, existence of me, existence of another person, existence of an experience that is common to both of us, everything is part of dream. So I feel that I am experiencing same thing which the other person is experiencing is also part of dream. That other person is also part of dream. I see that the person is different from me is also part of dream. Everything is like a dream only. Just because we have common experience doesn't make it real. Why? Because the common experience is also an illusion. Actually, to think that there are two people itself is an illusion. What to talk about a common experience of all of them? Both the people are creation of me alone. Just as in my dream, I see me, I see my father, both are created by me alone, both are me alone. My father is not different from me. So what to talk about the experience which is common to all if the people itself are not different? That is how we need to understand that the waking world is also like a dream. Hope it is clear. If not clear, please reflect more. That is it. We have completed the questions. Now from the next session, we will continue with the next portion of the verses. Chalo. Sorry, we had to extend the class otherwise. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.